Hello, everyone. This week, we will talk about energy poverty, access, and justice. Energy poverty and access has been there for quite a long time. It's an old topic, but still very important. While energy justice is an emerging topic, there are huge emphasis of it, especially in Biden administration. There are two cross-agency or whole administration approaches, or one is climate change, another one is justice, and energy justice is a very important aspect in that sense. As usual, we will talk about what you can do after learning this session, some sample analytic questions that we can address using the framework of energy poverty, energy access, and energy justice. For example, why energy access is so fundamental for modern life. This is especially true if we consider access to electricity, because electricity is so fundamental to our access to other energy or modern services such as information, healthcare, clean water, clean food, and other important services. The barriers and policies to facilitate energy access is still a challenge, especially in the developing world, least developed countries, where energy access is still a challenge. There are things we can do to help and accelerate such transitions. What is Justice 40? It's one measure initiative in the Biden administration, which promised 40% of the investment should go to disadvantaged communities. And we should know about Justice 40 initiative and get ourselves familiar with it and see what opportunities are out of there. What are the typical energy injustice and how to address them? We will discuss the definition of energy justice and typical examples of energy injustice, and reflect a framework that can help us to think about and find solutions to address energy justice or energy injustice. Energy poverty, or in the sense that energy access, is very important to provide sustainable energy for all. It's a very important goal of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Here, it listed electricity access, which is an important form of energy access, and its relationship with Human Development Index. And in general, there is a relationship between electricity access and the improvement of a Human Development Index. It's why you find that because many countries already achieve 100% of electricity access. That's why you see many doubts here. And countries has improved their electricity access from different time frame, and that's why you see the lines of it different countries, different regions. So from those analysis, those charts, we can excuse me, observe that the better access to energy, the better human development index. Those could include economic and education and other benefits, as you can see here. Gender parity, or proportion of people live on extreme poverty, that reduced as we have better electricity access, and maternal mortality ratio also decreased over access to energy. This again confirms that the access to energy is so fundamental for our access to other modern services. Those include education, as you can see here, literacy ratio, healthcare, and information, especially in the digital world. Some simple improvements in the technology can help us to enhance access to electricity, and it will help improve our human conditions in form of access to information, healthcare, education, and other services that modern life heavily rely on. One other aspect on the energy poverty and gender equity is, especially in the developing world, women and kids spend more time collecting wood fuel, which without access to electricity, that's what the household use for energy otherwise. Women also spend more time on cooking without clean fuel, clean energy. So they are not just spend more time collecting fuel, but also spend more time on cooking. As a result, women bear more burden on indoor air pollution because wood is for cooking, or for heating, it's a main source of indoor air pollution. Those include black carbon. That's where you see smoke, right? And PM 2.5, and in some cases even carbon monoxide and other poisonous air pollutions. Women have less opportunity for development because they are occupied by those tasks, and they bear more burden, and their time is occupied. So women have less access to education and less job opportunities, and then in the end, less economic opportunity for development. And part of the result is they do not have equal share of the benefits from economic development, and might suffer from family abuse and other conditions that are very unfortunately to women development. So energy poverty is also very important for gender equity in this context. In the energy access field or discussion, a very important concept is so-called the energy ladder. The idea of the energy ladder is as household or income increase, the energy household consume tends to move along the ladder from lower quality to higher quality to polluted to more clean energy, from traditional biomass fuels to fossil fuels to clean energy, for example. Here, it shows it can move from crop waste down to wood, to charcoal, to coal, kerosene, ethanol, gas, natural gas, and in electricity. Electricity is at the top of the ladder because electricity is convenient to use. We discussed this in the power system analysis, why electricity is so important, right? It's convenient to use, it's clean to use, and it free our reliance on other fuels, and it also transform the pollution from where it's consumed to where it's produced, and free from pollution if it's from clean sources. We need to say, we have to say, there are a couple of notes to really understand the energy ladder. And you can see from the literature. First, it's not a linear relationship. It's an empirical observation. That means as household income increase, there are potentially multiple usage of those different fuels for different purposes. For example, even in a high-income household, its energies might be dominated by electricity, but it might still use wood for fireplaces during holiday seasons, or charcoal for barbecue, for example. This is just one example. In some cases, some places they using wood for specific taste, or sawdust for smoke fish or smoke meat, only because it creates a specific taste. They might use, in cases electricity price is high, where wood might be free, so they may use electricity for their appliances, but they can still use wood for cooking, for heating, for other energy purposes. That said, we really need to understand the reasons why those parallel usage of different sources of fuel, and try to find out why. Some are driven by economic reasons, prices, costs. Some are driven by conventional, or some driven by behavior, or even culture, taste, or other reasons. We cannot assume as it moves to high income, it will consume more automatically, clean the energy use. So in order to encourage more, we have to think about those cases to increase the resilience of the energy system. People don't need to worry about wood for emergency use, or to really help people to understand the differences, so they can still create space to move towards more clean fuel. This field is well documented, and it has been heavily studied, and there are many cases that you can find at the different places, and interesting literature that you can read on. So I encourage to read more of this, and the idea is to move up the ladder and encourage use of clean energy as much as possible in household daily energy consumption. UN has a very ambitious goal that to achieve sustainable energy for all by 2030. This indicator tracks the progress toward that goal. And as you can see here, energy access, if we define that as proportion of a population with access to electricity. In 2010, there are more than 1.2 billion population without access to electricity. Latest number in 2020, it has been reduced to 733 million. And not only 7 to 8 years left to achieve electricity, sustainable energy for all, and it's still very challenging. And there are also a famous problem called the last mile, which means that the remaining population mostly living in remote and extreme poverty areas, and that makes it extremely hard and cost to deliver electricity for those remaining population. That's another challenge that we will discuss. Also, there are population with without clean fuel technology for cooking, and in 2010, that population is 3 billion, now reduced to 2.4 billion with access to clean cooking. If without access to clean cooking, then that means, as mentioned, they would spend more time to collecting fuel and exposed to heavy burden of air pollution and other implications. Renewable energy share is in general increased, but it has been moving slow and need to accelerate in that sense. Energy intensity has increased. It has improved. It's the number actually decreased because it consumes less energy to generate unit GDP. So here it shows the progress share of population with electricity, and most of the countries with economic development now has achieved 100% of electricity access, and that's very important. Countries remaining has populations that do not have electricity access are mostly in African, India, Indonesia, Mongolia, and some Middle and South American countries. And that's where the remaining 7 133 million population located. And coupled with economic development and other challenges, this is still really enduring task to really deliver UN's sustainable energy development for all goals by 2030. Share of a population with clean cooking fuel. This is more spread than the access to electricity. We discussed in the energy net idea, right? Even household has access to electricity. It doesn't mean that it will use electricity for cooking. They might still use wood for cooking or natural gas if available and affordable, or LPG. So this is more complicated and more challenging than they just providing the electricity access. We have to think about replacing or electrifying those energy usage with appropriate incentives and programs. Those can be including offer subsidies to replace appliances or to provide the appliances, and of subsidies for electricity, so it becomes cheaper to consume and provide the services, reliabilities that in those communities. I'll use China as an example, since I wrote a paper on it to observe China's electricity for all program. On the left chart, it shows how China's electricity for all program compared to those in the United States, UK, and others world average, India and sub-Sahara Africa countries. China declared to provide electricity for all population in 2015. It is quite an achievement given China's huge territory, diversified economic conditions, and its huge population, especially those who didn't have electricity, was really located in the remote and poor and economic and geographically adverse locations. Here, the right hand, the map shows where those locations are with colors, and the lines are the backbone electric grid, and it's harder to reach those locations. That's what we will discuss. Is there are a few lessons that we can learn. One is because of one's economic incentives, because those areas are remote areas, it doesn't make economic sense for grid really provide to build the extension to reach those locations. So it becomes prohibitive, expensive, as if we compare the cost. Some locations, as the average cost is 5 to 10 times the average cost in the main grid energy service. That's not what the local residents can afford. So it has created subsidies, and different color shows the subsidies mainly come from the central government. For example, in the Tibet region, 80% of the subsidies provided the central government, and in Qinghai, Xinjiang, 50%, and in Inner Mongolia, 20% by central government, and the rest by the provincial, matched by the provincial government. So economic subsidies are very important. It has to motivate the political intention to really address this challenge and issue. And second is technology. For those areas that main grid is too expensive to achieve, it mostly rely on mini grid and distributed solar PV to provide the electricity access, which means that they use small-scale household or multiple household systems. And because renewables are increasingly cheaper, and that provide an alternative technology solution for those communities, that they don't have to rely on central grid, but they can establish a distributed system to provide the electricity service. And that's another lesson, that today the technology is available and it's getting cheaper, and it can provide the reliable service that needed for their basic usage. And third is really to align stakeholders, because this task is not easy. It relies on the role of central government, which mostly provided the funds, and local government who knows the situation conditions well, and the electric or device, those renewable systems providers, that they can provide the service and the maintenance needed to provide the service. So it's really hard to align all stakeholders in order to make that happen. This provides some experiences and lessons for other countries to really think about how to achieve that. And it's basically needed the funds, needed the stakeholders, needed the appropriate technology in order to make that happen. Now let's move to another very important topic, emerging topic, energy justice. It has been on the agenda for quite long, but only recently it becomes mainstream and really needed to address and benefit those who has long been ignored or overlooked, and demanding the justice needed in order to achieve just transition. So what is energy justice? This definition from Initiative for Energy Justice shows the goal of achieving equity in both the social and economic participation in the energy system. We know energy system, including the energy supply and the energy demand, and the links match the supply and the demand, while also remediating social, economic, and health burdens on those disproportionately harmed by the energy system. That means we really need to see who benefits, who is harmed in the processes. So the transition leave nobody behind. Let's see what's behind the questions or the energy justice conceptual questions. There are distributional and questions such as where are the spatially distribution, where are the injustices, how should we solve them? For example, disadvantaged communities, where are they? And how can we help? And there are also recognition questions of who is ignored and what's the population, who benefits, who is harmed by the different energy systems, and how should we recognize what indicators we use. But there are also procedure problems, like is the process fair? Are those people who impact has a voice, and how can we introduce new process so we can incorporate those concerns and let those voices be heard. The following of the discussion, we use a few papers to discuss, because it's still an evolving field, and there are a lot of interesting discussion there, and there are also lack of a solid evidence or a research that can help us make better decisions, and it's highly demand for high quality research and evidence data-driven research that can support the decisions. One example is really started rooftop solar, and to see who is installing and how their benefit. And as you can see here, household at lower household level, the racial and ethnic differences is comparatively smaller, but at higher household level, it becomes the solar deployment shows huge disparities. Asia, white, and has largest share in the deployment, and those Black and Hispanic has lower share. That means certain racials might benefit more from the subsidies to encourage solar installation. And the implications is really need to help us to understand why, so we can create policies to address those challenges. This is just one example. Another, this is from the supply side. Another one is from the consumption side. A very interesting paper by colleague Manon University, and this research group using thermostat data and population characteristics, so we can observe when certain households with different income, when they kick in their thermostats. This is very important, because the observation is higher or lower income household, they turn on their thermostat at higher temperature when you need cooling, right? So this is called the energy equity gap. As you can see here, there are different. There are certain temperatures that we called comfort temperature, and this research really identified that when different households at different income level, when they turn on their thermostat for cooling, and as you can see here, household with lower income, they turn on their cooling or AC at a higher temperature, and that has implications, right? They may want, some comfort, but they cannot afford the cooling and only turn on the cooling for a few hours or when it's really, really hot. So it's a first direct evidence to show this gap, and policies really has to address this equity issue. Can you provide cheaper electricity for those households so they can enjoy the summer comfort as other groups? Those are two simple examples, but very important examples, one from the supply side, one from the demand side, and each shows how different population or groups benefit or impact in the energy system. And that's exactly why the Justice 40 initiative is very important. It's for the first time in US history, the federal government has made a goal that 40% of the overall benefits of a certain federal investments flow to disadvantaged communities that are marginalized, underserved, and overburdened by pollution, sorry. Those categories of investments include climate change, clean energy and energy efficiency, clean transit, affordable and sustainable housing, training and workforce development, remediation and reduction of legacy pollution, and the development of critical clean water and wastewater infrastructures. That means the new projects of new federal government investments will 40% of those investments will go to those communities, and that create many demands at how we really define, how we identify, recognize disadvantaged communities, what's the mechanisms so we can make sure all disadvantaged communities has equal share, has access to those investments, and how we access the progress. There are a whole lot of research questions and realistic demand in this regard. If you are interested, I definitely encourage you to know more about those opportunities and think about how you can contribute in those efforts. And it also needed to a new framework to really think about the just transition framework. So the injustice, the inequity issues, or it's embedded in the socioeconomic structure. It's an outcome of the conventional social economic development. If we only think within the framework, we cannot address those issues in the first place. So we have to really rethink how our economy, how we organize our economy, how we design our city, how we operate our energy system, and then we will have better chance to address those issues from resources to worldview to purpose to how the government work, and the operation of the government at a different level, and see how it will engage with the local community and provide the economic, legal, and other tools that are needed to address those injustice issues. Only through that we can shift economic control to communities and democratize wealth and workplaces, and advance ecological restoration and drive racial justice and social equity, and relocalize most population consumption, so to have a more inclusive development and more justice transition. It's a long way to go, but I'm glad that the U.S. mission recognized such challenge and started to develop programs to address those challenges. You may also hear about different terms such as energy justice, environmental justice, and climate justice, while they all have justice implications, but they may have slightly different focus. We discuss energy justice, focus on energy supply and demand, the energy system transition, while environmental focus more on environmental burden and benefits who get polluted, those including air, water, and other waste management. Climate focus on the climate impact, the benefits, but we have to acknowledge that energy can have environmental and the impact on climate. So that's why energy, environmental, and climate justice are intertwined, and we have to think about those are all interrelated. They share some common questions like who bears the burden, who harvests the benefits, and do we know the injustice? Can people involved in the decision process, and how to compensate those who lost, and how to create incentives to make changes. In New York State, the Climate Leadership and the Community Protection Act really has huge emphasis on the disadvantaged communities and try to address the justice issue. So if you're interested, this is also a good start to show, and it investigate the percentage of households in regions that live in different category of status, and those as identified additional low income out the disadvantaged groups, and as you can see here, different counties, different regions, they have different share, and those are the focus groups that need a special attention in order to that's the first step to really identify where those populations are, right? And this is a good start. So to summarize what we have discussed, electricity energy access is fundamental to other modern services, including education, health, information, especially in the digital world. Electricity access is just so fundamental. And to achieve UN's sustainable energy for all, it's very important for improve the human development index and the human living conditions. Energy access also has gender equity, health co-benefits, and other implications. So we need to have a broader view on the cost and benefits of providing energy access. Energy justice is important to achieve just transition, and we use examples in the energy supply and demand to discuss who get impacted and how to recognize them, and where are they, and how to compensate them, and can they involved in the process and the decision process, so their words get heard. And we also reflect a framework, rethinking our approach to achieve energy justice. And sometimes we have to think from the whole system-wide approach to really address those issues. I hope that provides an overview. This is a fascinating research topic and an emerging area for research for job opportunities. I definitely encourage you to pay attention and to know more about energy justice, and think about what can we do to improve it. Okay, that's all for this week. Thank you.